And then, of course, it'll help you to understand that church is something wonderful and glorious. And don't just take it for granted just because there's a lot of churches. There's around 14 or 15 churches here in Eldorado. And some people just say, well, there's a church over there, and there's another street, there's another church. But to go ask them, what is church? What is church? What kind of consideration should I give it? How come the word church is even in existence at all? And then, of course, there's other things about it. As you learn and take interest in it, naturally, there's other questions that arise. Anybody that studies and doesn't learn never has a question about anything. But if you're studying to learn, you'll be full of questions, believe me. And if you're full of questions, you'll run across somebody after a while that can help you on that. And, of course, that's what the church is for. But Paul said in one of his writings that the world may be known, that is, may know the mysteries of God and the wisdom. People want their kids to grow up and have a place to get married, and then have a place to get a divorce a little while later on, and then have a place to bury them. Somebody preach their funeral when they die. That's all some people think about a church when you talk to them about a church. And they don't even know what the word means. They see it, maybe read it in the Bible, but they don't read the context. They don't read the subject matter. And when they see a building looks like a church house, they call that a church, when the Bible may not call that a church at all. And if it does call it a church, it would call it a synagogue of the devil, a church of the devil. But there's people that don't believe that the devil has church. They don't believe the devil is the head of churches. You try to tell them, you mean to tell me that a church, that the devil has a church where people sing religious songs and preach out of the Bible? Well, sure, that's not strange to us, because that's a mystery to most people. How in the world can you have a church and read out of the Bible and sing songs and it still be a church of the devil? Now, that's a mystery to some people, but it is no mystery to us here. That's very plain to us. We've been taught. We've read for ourselves, and we understand how this great mystical realm out here is run. And we understand that there's unseen powers that are at work in this world here. And the Bible said that the devil was a prince of the power of the air. Well, when you stop to think what the power of the air is and how the devil is a prince of all of that, it'll be not too much mystery to you that since he has that much power, he can have a church. And they can use some of the things of God in that church just enough to deceive honest hearts that thinks that's a church of the Lord, and all the time it's a church of the devil, and they don't realize it. The 3rd chapter of Revelation and the 9th verse, he said, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, who say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. I will make them of the synagogue of Satan. Synagogue means church, and Satan, of course, means the devil. And in our language today, the Lord said, if you say you profess to be something that you're not, you're making yourself liable for the Lord to just let you go and let you make your own choice and follow your own inclinations and wind up in one of the churches of the devil instead of finding one of the churches of God that belongs to God. So these things are clear to us here, especially you that have been around. Now, this knowledge was brought here by me. Nobody ever came to Eldorado and preached the kind of doctrine and teaching that I preach, but I preach the Bible, and I teach the Word of God to the people here. And there's people sits around here that they don't believe that. When I make a prophecy, then they sit back and pick it apart, and try to make it not that way. And then they'll talk to others about it and try to get them to believe what they believe instead of believing what I'm teaching here. And then, of course, they will even bring a preacher in on it sometime and say, well, I talked to a preacher, and he doesn't believe what Bro.Jolly is teaching. But just because a preacher doesn't believe it doesn't make it not so. And, of course, some people want to find a lot of confirmation, just like us. When we read the Bible said, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word should be established. And when we find something in the Bible, we turn to other writers of the Bible to see if that's confirmed. We see if we can find more than one witness in the Bible. I remember a preacher, I was talking with him, and he was quoting a scripture. And I said, have you got another witness on that? Well, he said, yes. So he turned over to another another book of the Bible, but it happened to be by the same writer, Paul. So he picked one letter that Paul wrote, and then he picked a saying up in another letter, and said he had two witnesses. I said, brother, you don't have two witnesses. I said, the same man said that. Now I said, here Paul said so-and-so, and then he said it again when he wrote a letter to a church. He said it again. I said, that's not two witnesses, that's just one witness, because the same man wrote both those letters. Now I said, if you can find that in Peter's writings or Isaiah's writings or someone else, I said, then you've got another witness. But I said, you don't have but one witness if you've got the same man saying the same thing in two different letters. So he never thought of that. Well, there's a lot of things that people never heard before, never thought of, and sometimes it hits the mind too sudden for people to open their hearts to it, closes their heart instead of opening their heart. So, well, I never heard anything like that before, so I don't believe it. Usually when people hear something new, the first thing they think about is, I don't believe that. And then you have to take pains and take time out and break it apart, and finally you can get some knowledge over to that person if they're honest. If they're not honest, why, of course, a man convinces against his will be of the same opinion still. And so I say again, there's different founders of different religions in this world. And we've studied world religions here. Did you know that Eldorado had a school here one time in this church? Did you know this church was turned into a school? And we had ancient religions, the religions of the world. And we studied the religions of the world here. And most of the people back at that time, 30 years ago or so, came to this class, and we informed them. Brother Roy Gingrich was our teacher on world religions. And he went through all these great religions in the world and explained them, who their founder was, what they believed. And some of you older people here, you were there. You heard that, and you sat in that class, and it broadened your vision on what's in this world here in the way of religion of all kinds. And of course, when it came down to the Christian religion, why, of course, I've been teaching that part of it here all these years, because it's a big religion. It's a deep religion. It's very, very wise, and you have to keep your mind straight, and you have to live the right kind of a life for God to open these things to you. And so you can't be carnal-minded. You have to be spiritual-minded, and that takes prayer. That takes consecration. That takes getting rid of your old bad habits in this world here and taking on a nice, meek lady and gentleman spirit, because you can't be harum-scarum or helter-skelter or pell-mell, as they say, and get the things of God. You can't be a scatterbrain. You have to have a mind that can receive the things of God. And there's some people just too frivolous or too fickle. They don't take their salvation serious enough. They don't take the Bible serious enough. And you can't get very much over to a person like that that's not even concerned or interested at all. The first chapter of Luke tells us what a scatterbrain is. And it said he has scattered the proud in the imagination of their heart. The imagination of their heart, he scattered them. And that's people, that's a scatterbrain. We call it today, is a person that can't think very long on anything. And they jump from one thing to another, and their mind's so fickle that you've got to get something over to them in 5 or 10 seconds, or they can't listen to you any longer than that. And so there's people just like some of you watching these folks here, watching our sister go out, you're not listening. You turn me off then. When you turn, just look at our dear sister here that's very ill and has to leave here. And, of course, you turned me off long enough to watch her go out the door. I just use that right here as an illustration that there's a lot of times when something really important is being said, but the devil will attract your attention, or you're too fickle to keep your mind on that, and you look at something less valuable over here, and you miss something real valuable because you're looking at something over here that's not so valuable. And so it goes and on and on and on. But anyhow, you can tell the town, you can tell your friends that there is a church coming into existence like the early church, like the first church, the first Christians back there, 1900 years ago. You can tell the people that there's a people here in Eldorado that believes that that's coming back again. That we're going to have the same thing that early church had back there, because the Bible teaches that. And we're not satisfied with just going to church and sitting like a knot on the lawn. We're not satisfied with just hearing a little Sunday school lesson or a little 15-minute sermon from some educated preacher from a seminary out here. We're not satisfied with that because we have opened our Bibles. We've read in there. There's a hunger in our heart for the Lord.